Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Glassix Spotlight, where today we have the privilege of exploring the transformative power of customer experience with a true visionary in the field, Leslie Pagel. Leslie is renowned for her expertise in creating human-centric, purpose-driven CX strategies that go beyond the surface metrics to foster deep, meaningful connections between businesses and their customers. With a career dedicated to helping companies compete on strength of their human experience, Leslie has led the change and charge in elevating CX to a strategic advantage. Most recently serving as the Chief Evangelist at Authenticx, Leslie has helped healthcare leaders unlock the authentic voice of the customer to streamline healthcare journeys and improve health outcomes, bringing a new level of understanding to an industry that touches us all. Her ability to blend data analysis with emotional insight has allowed her to create strategies that not only drive business outcomes but also truly resonate with people. Leslie's approach to CX is both art and science, weaving together storytelling, data, and employee engagement to create experiences that not only meet but anticipate customer needs. With her ongoing work on the Purpose Project, Leslie continues to challenge the status quo, inspiring businesses and individuals to lead with purpose in everything they do. Leslie, we are super thrilled and excited to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. Leslie, before we dive into our conversation, is there anything exciting happening in your world lately that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. I think the most exciting thing that's happening in my world is I am now officially empty nester status. So both of my kids have gone off to college, and my husband and I are living our lives as if we did before we had kids.
Oh my
so
God.
so that's been a lot of fun to reconnect and have a life after kids. Very proud of what we did as parents, and now it's back to us.
Exactly. It's like 18 years, someone needs to bring them back.
That's right.
Love that. Love that. And envy you both at the same time. Um, Today's episode is called Purpose Driven CX Leslie Pagel's Journey to Human Centric Innovation. Leslie, let's jump right in. So, you've built a career around helping businesses harness the human experience to stay competitive. How do you see the connection between purpose and CX as evolving in today's face changing business world?
Yeah, it's a great question because I've spent over 25 years in the world of customer experience, and in that I feel experience in my body. It's in my soul. It's what I know. It is how um, businesses succeed. But today, as you mentioned, it is a fast changing business world. And I see companies getting really more intentional in focusing on how they can create and sustain a competitive advantage, and really focusing on the purpose of their business as the place that they're going to compete against. So today things move so fast. The pace of innovation is accelerating, which makes it really difficult to compete on the product alone. By the time you have something innovative and creative, it's already being mimicked in the marketplace. So competing on product is really challenging in our fast-paced environment, and really not many people are interested in playing the lowest price wins game either, and competing on price. A few years ago, I would have said they're focused on the experience to create that competitive advantage. But today, there's a lot of pressure on businesses, consumer pressure, government pressure on doing good in the world. And because of this pressure, I believe and am seeing a shift really towards focusing on purpose, having a higher purpose for the business as the way of creating that competitive advantage in the fast changing business world. And the good news is that purpose and experience are so intertwined because humans are at the core of purpose. Why do we have a company purpose? Well, we have a company purpose to help our customers, to help our communities, to help our employees. And so and humans are at the core of the experience as well. And so I see more companies focusing on purpose as a way of having a sustainable advantage in the business. And when they do that, it will influence the customer experience, the employee experience, the human experience that they deliver. But really, what's most important is to create a competitive advantage by the purpose that the company lives by. It has to be more than talk. You have to walk the talk, or else it's not going to win. So it really is about building the purpose into the fabric of the business and having employees live it out every day and customers experience it every day.
I love that last point. I think that, you know, walking the walk, and talking the talk, I think that that is kind of the most important thing, because a lot of companies, yeah, like I browse probably 100 websites a day as a marketer, and I go and see the about us pages, and all of them are purpose driven. All say they have purpose and mission and vision. But what do you do? What do you do in order to incorporate that in every fabric, in everything that you do within your employees, within your upper management, within your customers? What are the things that companies are doing in order to incorporate that purpose driven approach? What is the purpose? Because obviously purpose is a big thing, quite a
Mhm.
wide thing, and it changes from one business to the other. I think that, for us, what we do here at Glassix is, we do a lot of workshops. We do a lot of different types of events, not just internal, but also external. We do one big event a year with all of our customers, because we think it's important to connect and to kind of not just discussing, the technicalities of, the product roadmap or your wish list or what's going to happen next year, but also to kind of discuss why we do what we do, right?
Right.
And I think that is kind of, where what you said touched me. And this kind of thoughts that what went through my mind when you talked about that.
Yeah. I think one question that anyone listening to this podcast could ask is, when was the last time that purpose was at the center of our strategic planning, where we were talking about how we're going to execute on our purpose as a company? When was the last time that was a part of the strategic planning? And if, the answer is never, or, whenever we created it, which was, however long ago, then you're not there yet. Purpose needs to be at the center of why it, in a lot of ways, purpose is why the business exists. We exist to XYZ. And so that should be at the center of strategic planning. It should be at the center when you bring your customers together for your conference and bring them together for connection and community. It's purpose is what is kind of the glue that binds things together.
100%. And I think that being a storyteller is one of the most important traits a CX professional can possess in today's world. And you've spoken about the importance of storytelling and aligning customer experience with business strategy. Could you share how storytelling has helped you navigate the complex challenges of healthcare and other sectors you've worked in?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you think about storytelling at the fundamental level, it really is a communication approach. It is a way of communicating. And in business, there's a lot of different reasons for communicating. We communicate to inform, we communicate to educate, we communicate to persuade. And one of the compelling reasons for using storytelling as a communication tool is really to persuade, it's to incite action. And if you're in customer experience or employee experience, one of the challenges that I hear about all the time is driving action in the business. How do we get other parts of the business to improve the customer experience, to remove the friction in the customers' interactions that they're having with us? So it's about driving action. Well, one of the best tools for inciting action, communication tools, is storytelling. And now I've actually come to refer to it in the CX context as data backed storytelling. And so data backed storytelling helps persuade the audience to act. And so I've used it in a number of ways. I've used data backed storytelling to help an organization prioritize the customer experience as a strategic initiative. I've used data backed storytelling to help organizations drive specific initiatives to make improvements in their business. I've used data backed storytelling in broad industry level ways of helping. We talked about healthcare earlier, my experience in healthcare, helping healthcare organizations see other methods of listening to their customers beyond traditional historical survey methods. So I've used data backed storytelling in a lot of contexts to help incite action that drives the change that you're looking for based on the data that you have available or the priority that you're there to set forward.
Totally. And I think, especially in healthcare, we're talking about patients, patient care, patient experience. Not that it should be looked different than customer experience as a whole, right? But I mean, patient experience is something that, it's delicate enough,
Hmm.
and should have looked slightly different, I think, than other experiences, because each and one of us is a patient eventually.
Hmm.
um, and I know that there are a lot of different um, new things and new technology, especially now with AI booming all over the place, especially in customer experience and customer service. I know there are a lot of innovations in the healthcare sector that helps
Hmm.
delivering a better customer experience.
Hmm.
We help a few healthcare organizations across the globe um, to deliver a better patient experience. One example I can just talk about quite quickly is, um, we help patients of some clinic to schedule appointments. So they don't need to pick up the phone, they don't need to text to anyone, they just go to the clinic's app. They use the AI chatbot over there and they schedule the appointment. It could be a phone appointment, it can be a Zoom appointment, it can be an office appointment, personal appointment. So, and that helped the clinic to not just reduce um, the amount of stuff and labor, but it also helped to drive better customer experience and better NPS.
Hmm.
So that's just one example that I can think of in healthcare innovation today. From what
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much opportunity in healthcare and in really any industry of of leveraging technology to simplify the experience. The challenge though is really to think about in that experience design, think about it from the patient experience. Because, you know, a lot of times we think about, oh, it's just scheduling an appointment, but there's so much more involved with scheduling an appointment for a patient. And there's so many things that can get in the way of the scheduled appointment and things like that. So it's having the indicators, the inputs, and listening to those in a way that allows a business to be agile, and to leverage technology to meet customer needs.
I love that. That's so true. Like we tend to think, yeah, they just schedule through the chatbot, everything is so easy and seamless. But what about patients with special needs? What about blind patients? What about deaf patients? What about patients that can, just drive to the clinic? What about, there are so many, as you said, obstacles on the way. um, but with the right technology, we can definitely address all of these challenges.
Right.
100%.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about data analysis. So you're an obvious leader in data analysis, and you blend both art and science in CX. How do you strike the balance between data-driven insights and the more emotional, human aspects of customer experience?
Yeah. Actually, the that is data back storytelling. Data back storytelling is really about capturing the heads and hearts of the audience. So if you think about that in terms of data analysis terms, it's about using quantitative data to speak to the heads, to speak to our conscious mind, to speak to logic and reason. That's the quantitative data that we have in our business. But that doesn't drive action. Our behaviors are primarily, like 95% of our behaviors are driven from emotions. And so the challenge is to connect to the head, logic and reason, and prompt the heart to drive action. And in data analytic terms and research terms, that's where companies can really leverage that qualitative data that they have. Qualitative data is what connects to the heartstrings, the stories of a customer that had frustration. You're showing them that frustration represents 20% of customers in X situation. And then they get to hear one customer express that frustration. It changes the data, it humanizes the data, and it drives action in a business. And one of the things that I would say is that, you know, a way of making data back storytelling even more effective is when we can connect to more of the sensory items, our senses in of the audience. So not just showing data, but having them hear what it sounds like, really pulling in different kind of senses and using that to help connect the audience to the story, to the data that you're telling is a powerful tool for balancing the insights that are more logical with the emotional connections that that all of us as humans leverage to drive behaviors in our lives.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of, from my experience and conversations in previous episodes, um, and the CX click, as I know it, um, there's a serious kind of issue within this space of CX leadership, that a lot of CX leaders having troubles or are struggling with communicating their needs and wants to their upper managements. Some would
Mm-hmm.
say because they are small in numbers or sole
Mm-hmm.
CX leaders. Some would say they're not just as good as connecting data and backing it up with storytelling. And some would just say that, they never needed to do that within their 20, 30, 40 years of career. And now everything has just shifted in the past, I don't know, 5, 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the reality is most people would tell you storytelling drives action. Storytelling's effective. Storytelling is one of the most effective communication tools, but very few companies invest in teaching data-backed storytelling to the employees that need it. And CX professionals are one of those employees. They are trying to
I love that.
rally an entire enterprise around the customer voice. And they need not just the tools, but also the skills like storytelling, data backed storytelling to be successful in their job.
I'll even take it one step further and I'll say not enough companies, if none, are teaching how to be a
Mm.
leader in your field, a leader in your space, a leader of people, just
Hmm.
leadership as a whole. And
Hmm.
I think it's a well-known topic. For some reason, it's not been spoken a lot in different mediums. Uh, but I think that's kind of one step
Yeah. Yeah.
even bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Leslie, with your experience across various industries, what are the key CX challenges you see businesses struggling with today? How can they shift from reactive strategies to more proactive ones, purpose driven approaches, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, this is a big question, because I think every industry faces different challenges and every company within industries have different challenges. But,
Totally
I
agree.
think the broad stretching challenges is, like we talked about earlier, the pace of change, just keeping up with the pace of change. How do you know when you know enough about a topic to make decisions and go? AI is changing the business landscape. There's regulatory changes. Consumer expectations are changing. There's just a lot of it's constant change. And so that's one challenge. And then the other is, how do you keep all of your employees connected to the business that is constantly evolving? So everything's changing around you. You're focused in a direction, but you've got to navigate the ship. You've got to get all the employees pointed in that direction. And I think, a couple things that there's a lot of things that companies can do, but a couple things that come to mind in terms of shifting is one, really walking the talk when it comes to purpose, making purpose the center of the business strategy, because that one is the North Star. It is the guiding compass for the business. Here's why we exist. Here's what we exist for. And the other thing that it does when you're purpose driven, purpose led, is it gives employees meaning in their job. It makes their job meaningful. So that creates a connection to the company as well. I think the other thing, and I didn't think about leadership skills, but I would put that in the mix based on your comment before. But the other thing there is really prioritizing the importance of relationships in the business. A lot of companies are so focused on the outcome that they're looking for, the number, the goal, the metric. And those are all very important things. But the reality in business is that relationships are what drives the outcomes, they are what drives the numbers. And so, really making space within the business for prioritizing the importance of relationships as being the way that work gets done in a business, and the way that that work gets done is what is going to produce the outcomes that the business is looking for. So
I
what does
love
that mean? Like creating relationships, it's about like I think about creating an environment of psychological safety where people can bring their whole selves to work, creating an environment where listening is valued to each other, and just some of those kind of basic human experiences that exist, but really allowing those to exist within the walls of a business as well.
I love that point. I think we're all in a some sort of a stage. I don't know if it's because of technology. I don't know if it's because of advancements or innovation or whatever it is, or it's a generational thing. It reminded me of a podcast I heard a while back of Simon Sinek's one of his talks saying, "What happened to us?" Like he talked about the fact that he was helping a big company, not just a company. And he said that he was a fly on the wall in one of their QBR's meetings. And after the meeting, he saw the VP of sales going to one of the AEs and telling them, "Hey, if you're not going to hit your targets, you're out of here." Instead of just being a bit more empathetic and saying, "Hey, what's happening with your numbers?
Right.
Why aren't you performing? Is everything okay with you? I'm worried about you." I
Hmm.
think this element of empathy, it's just we're a bit lack. I don't want to be sound like I'm talking about everyone, but I feel like this is kind of the thing for the big companies out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and just to add a little bit onto that, I mentioned psychological safety. Well, that's a component of two things. It is about being courageous, taking risks, um, calculated risk, the level of risk that's tolerable in a business, but it's also about being the soft landing. Recognizing when someone takes a risk that it might not work out, and being the soft landing for that person so that they can learn, we can learn as the business from that risk that they took. So it really is about both, and that empathy is the soft landing in a business.
100%. And I know you realize that CX professionals might be missing the mark. Can you share what changed in your perspective and how you've since redefined your approach to delivering authentic customer insights?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in the world of CX strategy for a long time. I've seen it get created, I've seen it evolve. And, I do want to start by saying that individuals who are responsible for customer experience as a strategy, as an enterprise wide strategy, have a very broad set of responsibilities. They've got to align to the strategic vision, they've got to align to the org structure, they've got to influence culture, they've got measurement, communication, action, return. There's so much underneath that responsibility. And I think earlier you mentioned this, but in a lot of cases, they don't have the resources to support that scope of experience. So I'll start by saying that there's a lot of responsibility and not always the resources to support it. But when I look at kind of the historical view of CX and as you put it, as kind of where we're missing the mark, for me, I see that the perhaps the biggest shift is how that needs to happen is how CX professionals keep their finger on the pulse of customer needs. It's listening. Listening is the source of understanding about customers. It's the source of understanding about employees. It's how we keep our finger on the pulse of the human needs in our business. And the challenge though is business leaders, typically outside of CX, are very focused on having a measurement program that lets them know if they are improving, staying the same, or getting worse. So they have these CX measurement programs, net promoter score, CSAT, quality, whatever it is. And the challenge, though, is CX professionals typically are responsible for that measurement program, and they're using it to show progress, but they're also relying on it to tell the business what actions the business needs to go take. And that's where I feel like we're missing the mark, because the reality is we need to be bringing the right data to the problem at hand. We can't use our net promoter score survey, which is designed to be a tracking tool, really, in most cases, to solve a very specific problem that one geographic area is facing with their product offering. We really need to understand the problems in the business and then bring the data that is available to solve that problem, instead of just saying, I'm going to turn to my survey program and I'm going to use it to help you solve your problem. So I'm hopefully that makes sense, but to me it really is about um, having a way to measure progress on your CX initiatives, whether that's a survey program or not, but also being very agile and very ad hoc in how the business uses data to solve very specific problems that they're facing.
I love that. And I would say that, to your point, I would say that I don't think that, and again, this is based on my experience and deep understanding and meetings that I had with CX professionals. Luckily, those meetings happens on a weekly basis, but um, I think that we're in a stage right now that CX professionals, or let's call them CX executives, they don't know, or they're just not leveraging the power of cross departmental collaboration. I will explain that. What I mean by that is that I don't think they're doing enough to collaborate with the head of data analysis, or with the head of department of ops operations, or anyone that governs the data within the organization. And and I'm saying this again based on my experience and meetings and conversations that I have. And I think that they might need a way to kind of pave the way to better conversations and to build better frameworks and processes to help them become just better at what they do.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that goes back to the relationship thing. It's about establishing relationships with the appropriate leaders across the business so that you truly understand the problems that they are facing, and that you can bring the relevant data into their decision making process.
Exactly. And now to our bonus question. So, you've been an advocate for employee engagement as a driver of CX success. How do you foster a culture where employees are empowered to create exceptional customer experience? And how does that impact long term business outcomes?
Yeah, I think one of the best things a business can do is bring the customer into the walls of the business, whether that's physically or just in spirit. And I say this often: what's out of sight is out of mind. And in business, we don't want the customer to be out of sight. We want the customer to be in sight, visible to the employees. And when that happens, when the customer has a presence, and I'm not necessarily saying physical presence, but that they have their spirit is within the business. Customers are valued. Customers have a presence in the business. When that happens, employees are going to be connected to them. Employees are going to start asking themselves, what will our customers think if we make this decision? What will the impact be on the customer for this decision? Instead of kind of making decisions absent of the customer, they will also be more motivated to serving the customer, because the customer is visible and present and meaningful in their lives as well. And, ultimately that creates exceptional experiences for customers, for the employees as well.
I'm a big fan of having customers physically in premise. I think it's you know it's big. It's working for us anyway. Um,
Good.
but in some smaller companies, you'll see the CEOs jumping on a weekly call with their biggest clients because it's a thing,
Mhm.
and you have to do it. In some other companies, you'll see periodic workshops, or in-office conferences or things like that. Whatever, I think whatever works for your business at the stage you're at is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways to bring the customer in the business. I've worked in a company where we had customer kind of statements as the screensavers. When when your work computer would go into screensaver mode, there would be the customer there. They
Love
were
that.
on walls, posters in the physical spaces of the building, starting every meeting with a customer story. There's so many creative ways of just bringing the customer into the walls of the business, once it is prioritized as something that the business is going to do.
I love that. Well, Leslie, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. For our listeners who want to get more CX wisdom, I urge you to follow Leslie on her LinkedIn. This episode's gonna be live in a week time, probably. Leslie, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me.